Top 10 meta decks post Rage of the Abyss in October 2024. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So we're going to be starting off over here with Fire King variants. Now, this was interesting because Fire Kings, you have the split camp. You either play the Asmina package in here with the Snake Eye stuff, or you actually, dare I say, go down more of the pure Fire King build out here, where you rely on things like the new Ukalonix, by the way, fantastic card. It's now in the TCG, which actually kind of breathes some life into this deck, which I'm actually really excited about. And I don't really know why. Like, I'm not even a Fire King main or anything. It's just, I've wanted Fire Kings to be their own deck in the meta for so long out here. And the fact that we finally have this opportunity to have this, just, it feels so incredibly late up to this point. So I gotta start off with Fire Kings being in the top of the meta shell out here, just because the deck feels refreshing, actually. And that's a cool thing. Next up is Labyrinth. Labyrinth was a very hard choice to decide where I wanted to put it, because this in the 8th place deck kind of fight around in numbers. I kind of used the most recent YCS to kind of make this decision. Labyrinth still has everything that it's had in its utility arsenal, allowing the deck to still sit here and to counter the meta. You still have Trap Trick, you still have, if you're playing against Towers deck, you still have the Destructive Daruma Cannon, you still have all the virus. You have every utility option that you've had available to you to be able to tear apart these fields. And I think a lot of people kind of underestimate, still to this day, the toolbox that Labyrinth has as being one of these slightly above rogue status decks. So I'm going to give it to the toolbox of infinite outs. The deck still is incredibly strong for what it needs to do. Then we have Chimera Illusion. I debated between switching this and Labyrinth around, I'm going to be honest with you. The Chimera Illusion pile, I guess you do gain Asmina cards next set, which can be quite valuable to what you're able to do with the deck. Like, let's call it what it is, by being able to put in the Wanted Yubel Star package and gain access to, the extra illusion piles of options. Hello, Silvera. Hello, Negates. This deck now has a slightly stronger end board than it necessarily didn't need to have. So I got to give it to it. Even Chimera gets some power-ups out here in Rage of the Abyss, enough that it is looking like it's going to be a very strong meta contender. Those new cards, I think, do give it a sneaky little edge over the meta, depending on what ratios are and how you decide to be able to build the deck. Dragon Link. Dragon Link hasn't had a top anywhere. Somebody's gonna be like, Robbie, why are we putting Dragon Link on this list? Like, what are you doing out here? It's all because of the new Red Ice Full Metal Dragon. I think giving Dragon Link this generic negate, especially when you have all the Bystials running around out here as infinite tribute fodder for these things, I think that is enough of a reason to keep a spotlight on Dragon Link. And even if, pure Dragon Link doesn't end up being the thing, and, you see, a Dragon Link hybrid out here, maybe with, Asmina cards, Snake Eyes cards, I've seen people talk about it. I don't think it's good, but in theory and example, people like to stick together all of these weird variants and all these weird ideas. So you never really know what's going to take off out here. It's one of those really weird situations you look at and you're like, that could be an idea. Yes, it could. Plants. Yes, the European special out here. I don't know what it is about this deck that only in Europe. So I guess we got to make a special subsection built into here and note only for Europe. Plants, it's just big combo go burr. If you're playing 60 cards and you see the board breakers, welcome to Variance Purgatory, all right? Your opponent just happened to have the better board to break you, and that's all it is. Now, plants do get an incredibly harder matchup now that Omni Negates are back in. I mean, Varudis was really the only big thing that they had to deal with up until, the release of Rage of the Abyss. Now they have to deal with another Omni Negate floating around out here and, in Chimera and in Snake Eyes. So you got some problems you're going to have to deal with. Obviously, Droplet does kind of help out with some of those ideas, but who really knows? Did I mention at this point that any of these top decks could shift around at any point and you could have variants? Ritual Beast. Ah, yes. This deck, Protoss Control, as I like to call it now, is an incredibly ignorant deck that allows you to loop through a lot of holes and do things. Herman showed us during the last YCS that if you know how to pilot this deck to the absolute T, you are a monster. Alright, you know all the ins and outs, every little intricate thing that you can do with the deck makes you an amazing Ritual Beast player. And I think that this deck is definitely in the top 10 for sure. Maybe not as high as I have it on this list, but it is enough that Protoss generic floodgate control is incredibly broken for what it needs to do. But we might see that dial back on this for sure. It's one of those sorts of situations that it really just depends on where the meta starts to fall with these sorts of changes. Runic variants. Also, we'll toss in the stun variant in here. I don't think that this deck is anywhere near like top 4, but it's enough of a contender that I got to mention the White Forest versions out here because there have been so many White Forest Runic innovations actually happening right now that it's genuinely interesting to me to see the love that the mini Runic package is kind of finding itself having right now. People look at the stun version and they're like, oh, that's bad. I mean, the Runic Stunt is far from dead. It's just, it has to work way harder now to accomplish results based on the current state of the floodgate situation that we found ourselves in out here. So, but that's where the White Forest stuff comes in. Kind of supplement those, give you a new engine, give you capitalization on things. The deck is incredibly strong. Alright, so those are your top 7. Now we get into what you're kind of expecting. Yubel. Now I am putting Yubel as the 3rd best deck out here. I understand that not a lot of things have changed. Actually, nothing has changed with Yubel. Alright, you gain really nothing in the upcoming set. You kind of stay the same, which is where the next 2 decks get the chance to kind of surpass you. And I think that that's something that a lot of people are going to have a hard time grasping. It's going to be like, well, we still have Yubel at full power. Yes, essentially. All right, one opening really does leave the deck in the current powerhouse that it is. And, Triple Phantom is incredibly ignorant, sure. But the other 2 decks just feel like they're better in comparison to Yubel. Like that's honestly my whole case in point looking at this is you have some really cool things that you can set up. You have some really cool end boards that you can do. But Hand Traps, Shifter, is going to be the bane of your day. Alright? It's going to be rough. Snake Eyes. Now, no matter how you want me to spin this, the Azamina stuff is a major return back to this deck. Alright, the Azamina stuff helps out greatly. The only thing I'm worried about is one Pobbler. Pobbler is a consistency issue on its own, and the fact that sure you have one Snake Eyes Ash, yes you have one Snake Eyes Pobbler. Having those cards limited does still allow this deck to do things. It's just a lot more fragile. And given, pre Rage of the Abyss, the numbers weren't too great for this. Alright, the deck had some incredible issues out here. This deck could just fall off to the wayside. We are in one of those situations where you could be looking at this deck and, you could be watching this just crumble away off into naught. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case. I think that there is something to this deck sticking around in the top swing of variants that we're going to get the chance to actually enjoy. And then we have Tenpai. Now, the only reason why Tenpai moves up here is this deck's hand traps are some of the scariest that you're going to have to deal with right now. Between Shifter, the Mulcharmy, between, having board breakers built into the deck, this deck is just one card infinite purgatory that players are going to have to deal with. Alright, especially if you get Mulcharmied when playing with this deck, you're going to have a bad time. That's all there is to it. So, I am putting it in the number 1 slot because this deck, I personally think, is the best deck in quite some time. So, what do you guys think about top 10 decks post Rage of the Abyss for October. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.